This is LTV.
LTV's CityScope is brought to you through the generous support of the DeCarolis Insurance Agency. www.decarolisinsuranceagency.com.
Hello, and welcome to LTV's CityScope. Now, as you know, you faithful viewers, this is the show that talks about the who, what, where, when, why, and how of people, places, things, basically anything we want to talk about. That's what this show is about. My name is Carl Piermarini, and today I'm going to be talking to a couple of very talented gentlemen who are both well-known authors and talented artists, film producers, and longtime friends and collaborators. And of course, they are friends of mine from way back, say about 45 years or so, something like that, scary. Today I'm talking to Bill Walker and Brian Anthony of Walker and Anthony Publications. Now these guys are alternative history and fiction authors of such works as Starring John Dillinger, Abe Lincoln Public Enemy No. 1, Beautiful Monsters, Abe Lincoln on Acid, to name a few. We're connected to him long distance. Bill is in Southern California, zooming in, and Brian is in the Southern California desert. Sounds like he's in the Witness Protection Program, but I'm not 100% sure where he is, but we're gonna try to get Brian in as good as we can today. So, gentlemen, welcome to Leominster Access TV. As we say here, it's Leominster. Welcome. And why don't we start from the very beginning? Let's go back in time. We'd like to start in the beginning here. And can you give us a short bio of yourselves, where you're born, education, work? Bill, let's start with you.
Well, I'm originally from Connecticut. I ended up living in Miami for a couple of years before going to college because my father worked for Bacardi Rum. And basically I spent, once I got to college, I spent the next 15 years in Boston, which I sorely miss in many ways. And that's where I met Brian. He was literally in the dorm room across the hall from me. And we've been mixing it up ever since.
Well, that's cool. Now, Brian, let's hear your sad story.
Hi, Carl. I originated in New York. I went to college at Emerson College in the 70s, where I met you, and I met Bill. I think I met Bill the first day of college, and we've been friends for over 45 years ever since then. I worked in Boston. I did freelance film. I directed a feature. I moved out to LA in 1995. I worked on some documentaries and TV shows. Did a lot of writing. Co-authored a biography of the comedian Charlie Chase. I'm very interested in silent films, so I was doing a lot of research on silent film history. And about 10 years ago, Bill suggested that we do a book together. And it was actually based on a film we made in 1976 called Abe Lincoln Public Enemy No. 1. And it was a movie about Abe Lincoln robbing banks. It was a kind of a one-joke film. And we never even finished it because the camera jammed on the last shoot, so we never got to shoot the ending. So the film just went in a trunk somewhere for about 30 years. And Bill had been writing books on his own. He said, why don't we try collaborating on something? So we pulled out Abe Lincoln, Public Enemy No. 1, and Bill did a draft of it, which I thought really worked well. Then I, gave it my input, and we went back and forth with it, and that was the first book we did together.
So Okay, so before we really get in depth into there, when you guys were young, you obviously were interested in film, correct? You watched films. I know, Brian, you were very interested in the real old stuff. You know, the Chaplin and Charlie Chase and all that stuff. But did you both have interest in film? You know, obviously as kids and looking to be a film producer when you grew up, or what was the story there?
Well, for me, it was, I just like telling stories. I've been a writer since I was 9 years old, but I, of course, always loved movies and wanted to, study that in college. But, even before that, I was, taking my Super 8 camera out and making little movies for my own amusement, using my friends as performers and that sort of thing. I think Brian did the same thing, more or less. But once we got to school, it became much more of a serious endeavor to learn, the ins and outs of production. The one thing I regret about school is that they didn't teach screenwriting, which is something I think I would have liked to have learned more thoroughly earlier.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that. That would have been handy. By the way, I don't know if you people know, but they went to Emerson College in Boston, and I was a classmate of theirs. So we all kind of follow the same type of history, making films when we were kids. Alan, who's doing our audio board out there, is actually kind of helped me make my first films when we were younger. So that thing developed, and yes, I agree with you, Bill. It was sad that Emerson didn't really give that type of resource.
Well, what I always like to say is, they could teach you, how to load a camera, but they couldn't teach you what to point it at.
Exactly. Yeah, a lot of that we had to pick up ourselves from whatever. Some of the teachers were better than others. I don't want to throw out names, but some of the instructors, the professors were pretty good. Others, yeah. So a lot of this we had to learn on our own, which Brian, you did quite a few. You did a lot of films while you were in college, correct?
Oh, yeah. I did about 40 short films. I mean, some of them, when I say short films, some of them were 30 seconds. They were basically blackout gags. But others were up to 20 minutes long. So I just thought it was a wonderful opportunity because you had the cameras, you had the lights, you had technical help, you had people surrounding you that wanted to do it. It was a perfect opportunity. I always felt nothing could stop you from making a film. I know Bill and I back, 75, 76, sometimes on a Saturday, we'd pool our money and say, okay, this is for film stock, this is for beer, we'd have a camera, we would go out, we would shoot a film, and then we would have a little party afterwards. But we would literally make a film in one day. And it was just a really great creative process. You didn't realize it at the time, but it was a tremendous learning experience because you always learn from your mistakes, and things would always come back, with problems. I don't mean just exposure. You would just look at it and say, I should have held that shot. We could have gotten longer on that. You just learn things without even realizing you're learning them. And there was stuff that we're applying 20 years later that really, you learn making Super 8 films.
I agree with that, and I'm sure you do too, Bill.
Yep.
This might be a good point. I'm going to, we're going to show some of the films that you guys worked on when you were at Emerson. Keith, why don't we try showing spindle safety, Curtin Doug's spindle safety. Let's take a look at that one.
Kurt, get your fucking ass out here.
What?
Here, catch this spindle. Kurt, you suck.
Well, that was a good intro right there. You know, I should have put the disclaimer out before the show, you know, that there's going to be some language. But hey, this is Emerson College, you know, so anything went. Kurt and Doug turned out to be a pretty popular series. Wouldn't you say that, Brian?
Yeah, it was. We did 2 of them, and then we shot another 2, which was difficult because we couldn't get Kurt back. But yeah, those films have held up. People seem to like them. But that little film that you just showed, after we shot it, we had to add sound, and the sound was on a little mag track on a Unit projector, and you had a microphone pointed away from the projector because the projector actually had hum to it. And we would just do a needle drop on a record, and we had Doug doing one voice, I was doing Kurt's voice, and we had garbage pails and books that we would drop trying to just watch it and hit the sound effects. And I think we got it on the second take. And again, it's very low-tech by today's standards. I guess low-tech by any standards. But it was a real learning experience for us. So it was a lot of fun. I'm glad that we can, you know, revisit it 45 years later.
Well, you know, I would be remiss if I didn't show the big surprise. Kurt and Doug, let's see, Keith, why don't you see if we can roll that one?
Kurt,
What?
get your fucking ass on the roof.
But I'm watching Star Trek.
Get on the roof now.
Okay.
Kurt, catch.
Oh!
Hey, you suck.
Now you can see where the influences were there, guys. I mean, very, very nice work. What I'd like to do now is progress a little bit further now. Brian, the Sing a Sad Song, how did that film come about? Was that toward the end of your Emerson College days, or was that somewhere in the middle?
Yeah. Yes, that was my practicum film for the final year, and I wanted to do a two-reel comedy, like a Hal Roach comedy. And I was working with a few people, and one of them was Harold Brittingham, who's a student at Emerson. And we were throwing ideas around, and he said, why don't we make a film about a Boston lawyer who wants to be a country music singer? But he knows nothing about country music, so everything is filtered through his being a lawyer. So all of his songs were in legal terms, like Love is a Legal Loophole and Veto Romance, Objections Overruled. And I thought it was a wonderful idea. So we ended up, again, it wasn't so much scripted. It's funny, it wasn't scripted, but it was storyboarded. And it took about a year, but we finally came up with this little 20-minute short.
You know, that film was my almost 15 minutes to fame. Brian asked me to be in the chain gang sequence there, and unfortunately I couldn't do it. So
That's right.
every time I look at this today, I feel it could have been the start of a great acting career. But can we, we have about a 4-minute section of Sad Song. Can you play that one, Keith? I think it'll help wrap up the film career section.
Great. This is a tremendous song of tragic romance and wrecked marriage.
Yeah, thanks. Hey, listen, I thought we could use my divorce decree for the album cover.
Now, hold it. You need more than one song before you have a hit album.
Well, what do you suggest?
Oh, I'll take a look at the charts. CB, kid. You need a CB song.
Damn them double nickels, my third is shaky town. Though the rain's as thick as pickles, I'm gonna put the hammer down. Yeah. Flip-flop cave, whopper, chicken coop, shoot, I've got my ears on, sucker. And if Smokey's there, I just don't care, cause I'm a trainee trucker. Trainee trucker, trucker, trucker. Trainee trucker.
That's a great song, kid. Great. So earthy.
Thanks, good buddy.
Sorry to bring it up again, but,
The charts?
prison songs. That's what's doing big now, kid. Prison songs. You think you could write a prison song?
10-4, Rubber Duck. Off the truck.
You scum are here because you're proving yourself unfit to live among decent folk. You want to act like animals, be treated like animals. If you boys want a drink of water, ask me. Lamont will get it for you. If you want to go to the bathroom, you ask me. Lamont will go out there with you. Now start digging.
Oh, I'm dead. I can't do this anymore. This is too much. It's too hard. I can't do it. Tough shit. Oh, there's got to be some. Hey, listen. Did anyone else ever, escape from this chain gang? I mean, is there a way to do it?
Yeah, one guy once, he hacked his toes off with a hatchet to get off a work detail.
That'll do it? You hack your toes off with a hatchet?
Worked for him.
Working on the chain gang, working till you drop. They won't even let you blow your nose. Working on the chain gang, but if you want to stop, just cut off a couple of your toes. Ah!
That song's gonna put you over the top, kid.
Thanks. Anybody could have done it with talent.
Next week, we're gonna...
Well, that's a little segment of Sing a Sad Song. Bravo, Brian. That was excellent. You can tell
Thank you.
your directorial talents were being finely honed there. They were very nicely done.
Yeah, we learned a lot. Bill worked on that, too. He wasn't in the clip, but he actually appears earlier on in the film. And he was there, for basically the entire shoot. I mean, Bill and I were making separate films at the time. I always worked on his, he worked on mine, and then we did stuff together. So
Right.
I've never been with so many creative people at one time, including yourself, including Bill, including others, as that 4 years at Emerson College. It was a pretty incredible time.
It was. It really was. And I noticed that you had a little cameo as a member of the Chain Gang there.
Oh, I had more than one cameo because we didn't have actors. The cinematographer would say, "Go sit there," or "Go on the Chain Gang. We need another person." Yeah.
Well, that was good. It's probably one of the only times you were ever caught on camera, right?
Yeah, I have no interest in being on camera. I did those out of necessity.
Well, let's shift gears a little bit. And let's talk about your collaboration on writing. Now, what year, when did you first decide to join forces and try writing? The films progressed with Abe Lincoln, Public Enemy, and you wanted to turn that into a book. Is that what happened?
Well, it was probably around 2012. And Brian, you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was right around that time that you found the footage for the movie Abe Lincoln, Public Enemy in a trunk somewhere. And we just started reminiscing about it. And it was at that point that the light bulb went off over my head and I said, this would make a great novel. The idea being to play it absolutely straight. Lincoln ends up in the 1930s robbing banks alongside John Dillinger. And the challenge in writing it was to keep Lincoln being Lincoln. In other words, honest Abe, even though he's robbing banks.
They were loved, and they were despised. They were considered saviors by their brethren and criminals by their adversaries. Their lives were governed by their beliefs, and men died for them, violently. Fate threw them into an unholy alliance that would change the world forever. They were American originals. They were John Dillinger and Abraham Lincoln. There are things far worse than death. Of this, I am living proof.
Now, there's always been alternative history type of books out there. But back in 2012, was there a lot of that going on or not that much?
Well, there's quite a few alternate history books. One of my favorite authors, a guy by the name of Harry Turtledove, wrote a book that I think would make a great movie, but nobody's done it. It's called The Guns of the South. And the cover of the book is such a classic as it shows Robert E. Lee standing there holding an AK-47. And, for Abe Lincoln Public Enemy #1, there's obviously a fantasy element that allows him to be alive in the 1930s. So it departs a little bit from strict alternate history conventions.
Yep. Okay. So Abe Lincoln Public Enemy #1 was the first one?
Correct.
Okay. And how did that do when it first came out? Did it do fairly well? Was it on Amazon right away?
It got really well reviewed. We did some signings. Not always successful events because let's face it, nobody knew who we were.
Right.
And it's when you self-publish books in this day and age, it's all about series and promoting, giving away book one when you're selling book two. And
exactly.
At that time, Lincoln was a standalone title, and it was a couple of years later that Brian and I decided to do a second one.
Right.
And that's Abe Lincoln on Acid.
Both of the books are excellent. I really urge all our viewers to look them up on Amazon and pick them up because they're fantastic. Now let's talk a little bit about the cover artwork. Were those all the books done by you, Bill? Yeah,
Well,
were they all done by you, Bill?
I've been doing book design for 20 odd years now,
Okay.
and the one thing I regret being a graphic designer is that I don't really have the talent to draw or paint.
Okay.
So the covers were my concept, but I hired an artist to do the paintings, and then I did all the typography and the layout to go with it.
Okay. Now, Brian, you also you do restoration work also, right? You have a company that does restoration work on artwork and things like that, or?
Yes, that's my day job in between writing books. It's just myself and my wife. We've done about 8,000 restorations.
Wow.
We've been doing it for 24 years. And we do paintings, we do original artwork. The majority of work we do are, rare old books, dust jacket covers. We even do antique toy boxes from
Wow.
the 1800s up to the 1950s. Some of the robot boxes from the 1950s are worth, many thousands of dollars, and we restore those. So we keep busy doing that. Yeah.
So you knew of Bill's abilities, and so this collaboration just worked out well. Correct. You didn't have to spend a tremendous amount of money on having artwork done for the books.
As Brian said, I tended to do the first drafts, and then we kick it back and forth.
Right.
And I also, as far as the finished books, I do all the interior layouts because I've been doing that for years and years. And the important thing about a good book design is that it's kind of invisible and it's easy to read.
Right.
And that's kind of my whole mindset when I'm doing that part of it.
Well, I think it's so important to have that cover art that attracts attention. Even
absolutely.
Even on Amazon, it really draws you in immediately. Which is fantastic. Can you talk about some of the other titles you guys co-authored?
Starring John Dillinger is the latest one, and that kind of was born out of the fact that I had such a fun time writing about Dillinger, and Abe Lincoln together, and I just kind of fell in love with that character. So I don't know what generated the idea, but just one day I said, what if Dillinger had surrendered instead of dying in front of the Biograph Theater, and ends up a movie star in Hollywood, and the whole thing with that was to stick as much truth in there as possible. One of the things that a lot of people don't know is that he and one of his cohorts, Homer Van Meter, they actually purchased motion picture camera equipment. They were going to make a PSA saying, "Kids of America, don't do what we did. Go to school, listen to your parents," that kind of thing. It never happened, but that's the idea. I took that. So he's in prison and he gets this idea to make a PSA. And then Jack Warner sees it and goes crazy and gets him out of prison. And, the rest is the story.
It's really an excellent story. I loved it. It was done very well. The one disappointment that I had with it, that Dillinger never got a chance to meet Shemp Howard. Can you make sure you write that into the next book, Bill? I think it'll be fantastic.
Okay, well, Shemp is always out there for us,
Actually, Carl, we'll
Yes.
let you in on a secret. We adapted this into a screenplay for a miniseries, and Dillinger does meet Shemp Howard in the miniseries.
Oh, okay. Sounds good.
Yeah, Shemp somehow ends up in everything, even in the Lincoln books. When Lincoln is watching the Three Stooges on television, his favorite stooge is Shemp.
Right. Yeah, a lot. Shemp's had a bad rap over the years, but I think, the future's out there. We can make him a star. So you never know what'll happen. So, can you guys talk about how your writing process works? Do you come up with ideas, Bill, send it to Brian. Brian looks at it, throws his ideas in. How does it work?
That's pretty much how it works. With Beautiful Monsters, it was Brian's idea. So he was the one who did the first draft on that one, and we kicked it back and forth.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, that's I think one of the necessary things that makes our collaboration work is that somebody takes the helm and does the first draft. And then it becomes a lot easier to go in and surgically fix things as needed.
Right.
And we both for each other's ideas. If we suggest something and the other doesn't particularly want to go for it, then we say fine. Stick with what the original idea was at that point in the story.
Yep. Well, these books they're fantastic, and I think these streaming services are missing the boat. They should be banging on your doors and saying, hey, give us a screenplay, and blah, blah, blah. So what does the future hold? Are you working on that type of thing? Or?
Well, as Brian mentioned, there's, starring John Dillinger is now a limited series. And we did something a little different than most people write a pilot and they'll do a Bible describing the rest of the series. We did that, but I also just had a real itch to script the entire 8 episodes.
Okay.
So that's what we did.
Yep.
And we, in the interim, I've been using a portal called Stage 32 to do, phone consultations with film executives, managers, that kind of thing.
Okay.
And it was through that service that we found an executive producer / showrunner who we have a shopping agreement with, and she's got it at Warner now, which would be the ideal place for it to be because most of it's shot on their lot.
Right. Yeah, that's excellent. Well, how about future books? Do you have some other books on the way also, or?
Well, I have one that I just finished. It was actually a screenplay first because that's what I'll do. Sometimes whatever form I write it in first, I'll then adapt it into the other one. So, this one was a story based on my experiences working on a independent film in Georgia back in 1976 called Whiskey Mountain. That's the title, Whiskey Mountain Days, and it's about a romance between a young man and an older woman. So that's my other genre that I enjoy working in.
Yeah. I love I love your collaborations, and I like your books too, Bill. They're really well written. So I guess your plans for the future is just continue this, hopefully broaden it to having some TV done and some streaming series collaborations. I think it's a great goal to look forward to, and I can't wait. I think it's fantastic.
Well, all of the books either are books that we adapt to screenplays, or in some cases they're scripts that we write that we then adapt to books.
Right.
Beautiful Monsters was a script that we adapted into book form.
Okay.
And we did a screenplay. You see, Lincoln was supposed to be a trilogy, possibly even 4 books, which are the 1930s, the 1960s, the present day, and if there was a 4th, it would be a space opera in the future. So we did the screenplay for the 3rd one, which took place in the 2016 elections.
Okay.
And Lincoln actually gets in the mix. The thing about the Lincoln character is we like him to comment on the times. What would Lincoln make of it today? What would he have thought of the 1960s? What would he have thought of the 1930s?
Right.
So we did a screenplay, which I've been tinkering with, turning it into a book. We may finish it as a book. We may just leave it as a screenplay. But, we just keep writing mainly because we enjoy it. And, it's just part of it. You have to do it.
Well, this is great. I've really enjoyed talking to you guys and reliving some old times and hearing all the projects you're working on. So I'm looking forward to the future. I'm looking forward to seeing some of your work, visually, other than reading.
More than we are.
But I want to thank you both for taking the time today to speak with me, and I wish you all the well going forward. And Brian, stay out of the desert as much as you can, and Bill, just carry on. And when I get this show done, I'll send you guys some copies of it so you can put it in your archive. And
that'd be great.
This would be great. Thank you.
Fantastic.
Thank you both. Brian, thank you very much. And
All right. Thank you, Carl.
okay, so thank you, viewers, for tuning in to CityScope. And remember, time waits for no one, so do it now. Thank you for watching.
LTV's CityScope is brought to you through the generous support of the DeCarolis Insurance Agency. www.decarolisinsuranceagency.com